Hello, this is Keith Kreischer, the Executive Director of the IoT M2M Council, or better known as IMC. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to track 3 within our IoT Days fall event presented by the IMC. I certainly hope that everyone joining us today is staying safe and well in these frankly dangerous times. We do have some folks joining us from Israel, and we are prepared to pivot if they need to leave quickly. But I'm sure we'll manage, and we do thank everyone for being here. So thanks so much. The topic for this track is flat rate connectivity plans for IoT devices. We'll have a panel of 45 minutes or so, followed by a 10-minute presentation on sourcing your IoT hardware, specifically antennas. And doing that early in the process of your deployment. The two subjects, I think, fit well together, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of cross themes discussed. Before we begin, I wanted to cover a few housekeeping items. The webcast today is being streamed through your computer, so there is no dial-in number. For the best audio quality, please make sure your computer speakers or headset are turned on and the volume is up so you can hear the presenters. An on-demand version of the webcast will be available later today and can be accessed using the same audience link sent to you earlier. If you have any questions during the webcast, and this is important, you can submit them through the Q&A box on the right side of your screen. Presenters may answer questions at the end of each session, but please feel free to ask questions at any time during the presentation. Any unanswered questions will be responded to offline, and we will have a copy of your question, and that will be related to your registration information. So we will get back to you, never fear. For those of you that do not know the IMC, I thought it might just be wise to give you a quick word of introduction. The IMC is the largest trade organization dedicated to the global IoT sector. Its membership is comprised of 25,000 rank and file adopter members who are individual enterprise users, product makers, and OEMs and apps developers that deploy IoT solutions. They join the IMC for our content, which in addition to events like these, we're very active in conference programming for live events. We're the exclusive IoT partner for CES and Embedded World, as well as providing our adopters with use cases, white papers, newsletters, and blogs. IMC adopters have to qualify for membership as IoT deployers, something that we think differentiates us. The IMC's Board of Governors includes 35 of the most influential IoT technology companies that provide solutions in the form of hardware, software, and connectivity. They join the IMC for access to our adopters for purposes of thought leadership, lead generation, promotion, and research. We encourage any attending today to check out our website, iotm2mcouncil.org. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce our moderator. I'm fully appreciative of the fact that he and his mother are the only two people on the planet that refer to him as Matthew, my good friend and colleague, Matt Hatton from Transformative Insights. Matt, good afternoon.
Thank you, Keith. And thank you for that kind introduction. I did comment on that during an earlier discussion that Keith
couldn't resist.
Matthew. Thank you for that. Great. Glad so many of you can join us for this panel session and also for the presentation that follows. I should introduce myself. Yeah, I'm Matt Hatton, one of the founding partners at Transformative Insights. We're an IoT focused industry analyst firm with particular focus on the connectivity space. At least that's what I tend to find I'm doing for most of my day job. And one of the critical areas within that is related to, obviously, pricing, and that's the subject for the discussion today. In fact, specifically one aspect of that, flat rate connectivity plans. I would encourage you all to drop questions into the Q&A box as we go. I have a set of structured topics that I want to get to with our 3 panelists, but I will certainly make time for questions that come in via the Q&A box. So please do get those rolling in. First up, I should offer our 3 panelists the opportunity to introduce themselves and offer some first comments about the topic and thoughts on the topic, and generally to introduce who they are and what they do in IoT connectivity. So I'm going to start with Sean. Sean, over to you.
Thank you so much. My name is Sean Rudnick. I'm the commercial director at Telit Cinterion, going on about 8 years here. And I'm happy to have the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about what Telit Cinterion is doing. I really appreciate you putting this together. I think it's a topic, the flat rate pricing models in general is just something developing quickly, becoming very interesting and very impactful to many of our customers. As a company, you can see here we have up on the slide, Telit actually plays in a few different arenas that collectively form our ecosystem. So we have our turnkey solutions, and that's where we're actually able to develop the products according to our customers' needs. We have decades of know-how. We have a huge team of over 1,000 employees spread around the world who have diverse backgrounds in different applications, different industries. And we're able to help our customers significantly by taking our knowledge and sharing that with them. Historically, and many people are actually familiar with both Telit and Cinterion from our days when we started providing modules. Our IoT cellular modules was our bread and butter for our early years. And as time went on, we realized the benefit to growing the ecosystem and taking those modules, if you will, and putting them on steroids by being able to offer more than just the physical piece of hardware. Then we come to our connectivity, of course, the data plans where we're offering connectivity in well over 200 countries and territories around the world on over 600 networks. And our customers have all sorts of needs based on location, based on cellular technologies, whatever it may be. And lastly, it comes to our platforms. So the place where you can interact with everything we've discussed so far. You can see your modules, interact with edge capabilities, monitor triggers, alerts, anything that's happening with your SIM cards. Where are they? What are they doing? How much data is being transmitted? The platform is extremely powerful, and that's essentially what brings everything together. We also offer design services. And we have customers that will approach us and tell us, I have an idea, or we're in a certain industry. It could be agriculture. And they say, we're in this agricultural space for decades. We know our industry very well. We know nothing of IoT. We don't know technology. We don't have the resources on hand, but we have an idea. And that's where we can use our in-house design services to actually take them from A to Z. And by A to Z, I'm talking about they show up with a doodle on the back of a cocktail napkin, and we actually engineer it for them, source anything needed, manufacture the product, get them certifications, and in some cases, get them flat rate pricing if that's what they need. I mentioned our connectivity services, and I think we'll have a chance to talk a little bit more throughout this session. So as I said, though, our Telit Next connectivity offering is a global offering, and it's growing into different, not only verticals, but into different capabilities as the industry is growing. Cellular technologies are growing. The SIM capabilities now with IUICC, EUICC. I think these are all things that we'll discuss shortly. And collectively, as you can see with that image on the right, this is the layer cake for us, all different capabilities that we have depending on what our customers need. And lastly, just my final thoughts on the flat rate pricing in general. As I said, there's definitely a time and a place for it. We're seeing the demand grow in certain industries, and it offers to our customers, first of all, a clear view. It's very simple, so there's no doubt about that. The flexibility that it offers them in understanding their own deployment, the simplicity also translates to their end customers. So there's a lot of benefit. It's not only the direct cost, but it's the indirect savings as well, the convenience that it offers to them and their business models. So I think we'll have a chance shortly to dive a little bit deeper. And I think that's enough to get us started.
Excellent. Thank you, Sean. So Anna, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me in this illustrative round. So my name is Arne Assmann. I'm VP Commercial here at Once. So one of the guys who's actually responsible for setting these first lifetime flat rates offering into the market some 6 years ago. So let me quickly introduce you what we do at Once and how we do it. So Once in itself, I think known in the industry now for the world's first IoT flat rate offering. What does it mean? In simple, before I come to that, I think that the facts speak for themselves. What does it have an impact on the market? We're active since 2018 now, which allowed us now to gather almost even more than 15,000 customers globally, for whom we manage more than 20 million endpoints all across the globe. Our service can be used in 165 countries worldwide. But what is most important is the verticals and the areas of applications where it can be used, because there is some rumors it can only be used for low data or whatever. You can be using our service almost in every vertical and every use case. Of course, there are some limitations that it might not fit as well as good, for instance, for high data use cases, but IoT is very much not just connectivity, it's way more than that. So the verticals we serve, logistics, fleet, utilities, infrastructure, solar panels, charging, it's almost everything you see in the industry. What is important is the DNA of our customers, and maybe also what we assume to be the DNA of IoT customers in general, that we see 75% of our customers operate internationally, which we indicate as a clear factor is that IoT is a truly global business. And this becomes even more true that if you see that customers that use us heavily and also extensively, you see 40% of our customers use endpoints in more than 10 countries and even more all across the globe. So this is important. So what do we do and what does Once do? I said IoT is more than just connectivity. And also, thanks to the many chats we had with analysts, like guys with Matt Hatton and others, we needed to realize when building up the service, it's more than just building hardware, and also what, of course, Sean is addressing with the Telit offering. It's more than just handling hardware. It's coming from the hardware, being able to transport the sensor data into the cloud, which you see here, as the kind of data layer, data transport, sending the data into a cloud layer where you can manage the data seamlessly, and at the end being able as a customer to make a valuable solution out of it in the cloud or wherever where you build it. And that is what we address with Once, by allowing customers to not just connect the data, but also to manage the data over the lifetime of the device. And what you see in IoT is very often that lifetime in IoT is very different than consumer telephones, mobile, or whatever. IoT is a different game because we discuss about sensors that are in the field for years. Hence, we came up with a lifetime offering that allows customers to connect the device for up to 10 years for as little as $10 or 10 euros, and allows them, of course, to gather the sensor data. So we have software tools that allows customers to gather data already at the device itself, to seamlessly transport it into the cloud and manage and optimize the data in the cloud. And that is all that you can do. So, and all that it is included already within the $10 offering that we have. And it combines, and it is being framed by the fact that you can use this service for 10 years. That's our flat rate offering. And that is what I'm happy to discuss today with the round.
Absolutely. Thanks, Anna. And Eric.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to real quick also present Vodafone. My name is Eric Kling. I'm heading the IoT organization for Vodafone in the Americas. Vodafone, as you might be aware, is a mobile network operator. We are the largest mobile network operator in the world when it comes to regional distribution and number of connections outside of China. For the dedicated IoT organization, we're looking at 162 million IoT connections, over 1,400 dedicated IoT experts, and certainly we set the industry standards. We're working within the standards and are very dedicated to make IoT a global offering, including a very prosperous ecosystem. When you look at the verticals, Arne also mentioned it as well. We are working across all vertical. It can go from energy to automotive to transportation. There is no vertical we are not serving. We are a truly global company here as well. Sustainability also I want to mention for Vodafone, which is a very big topic for us within our own ecosystem, within our own global real estate supplier organization, and simply day-to-day focus. Sustainability is a big topic. We are very customer focused. When it comes to the pricing, we certainly go through all kind of different pricing categories, which might be applicable for the customers. That could be from tiered to flat rate pricing to local to global. And we are very much focused on tailoring our pricing and commercial offering towards the customer needs. On the next slide, I'm just gonna move forward. You will see a little bit about our awards and recognition for Vodafone IT on a global scale. We are the leader in a Magic Quadrant with Gartner, but also with other organizations here. I'm sure you are aware of, from Global Data to Frost & Sullivan, IDC, or ABI Research, which are basically a sign of our global presence, performance, customer focus, and we are also very thankful and grateful for the awards and recognition. So that was a little bit a quick overview, Matt, about Vodafone, and back to you.
Thank you very much. And I should hasten to add that Transformer Insights was on that last slide as well. Let's talk a little bit about definition, shall we? I mean, you've all kind of touched on the topic, and maybe everybody kind of thinks they know what they mean when they say flat rate. What do we include? What is flat rate? And I'm going to come to you first, but Sean, Eric, feel free to jump in as well. How do we define it? You talked about lifetime connectivity for the device, but what else is included in there? What's the recipe for saying that it's a flat rate tariff? Does it need to be unlimited? How do we define it?
Maybe let me answer it this way. Of course, it's a product definition that we define ourselves, and we define it as follows: that we say what we want to give to customers is the ability for customers to manage and connect a device for the lifetime of its product lifecycle. That's the idea for us to build, or why we have built up the IoT flat rate offering, which led to the fact that we said, okay, what do customers need actually to manage and connect the device for a lifetime of a device? So they need lifetime, which is 10 years, which we set at 10 years. Second, what we did was we added data so that we can somewhat say, okay, data and SMS is a feature that is needed to connect the device and allows them to. Same is then for connecting the device is the SIM card, which is also part of the $10 offering that we have. But on top of that, it does not stop there. It's important that customers realize it is way more than that. Why I highlighted what it means to connect a sensor data on the device to the cloud. So what we added on top into the offering is software tools that allow customers to transmit the data. So to get a seamless integration into the cloud, that the devices are authenticated. Our platform allows customers to seamlessly do that, not to go to a different service anymore, because otherwise it becomes a super hack to manage all of these different platforms. Customers can do, we are interoperable, but we try to limit this kind of complexity for customers by having a very complex and comprehensive offering. So software services is included, APN, VPN, so it's secure, of course. So in a nutshell, you could say it's an all-inclusive, very free offering that we combine and bundle within the flat rate offering.
Good stuff. And in fact, we've started talking a little bit about maybe not IoT connectivity, but device to cloud connectivity, i.e., including all of those, taking data off the device and pushing it into the cloud. So what you're saying is effectively it includes all of those things as well. It's not just a SIM card that happens to have some data bundled in with it.
Exactly, because if you think of it, we always try to visualize it at the following way. There are two data sets that customers need to manage. Connectivity is just the two things that brings it together. I'm not sure why this is happening. It's interesting.
We seem to be getting thumbs up and balloons appearing on our profile. So I'm hoping for one for me as well, but I haven't seen one yet. But Anna, you've been with a couple.
So I take it as a compliment, hopefully.
Absolutely.
No, it's the following. So what we do is, of course, to manage these two data sets that you say, okay, there is the sensor data that you need to somewhat get off the sensor, off the device into the cloud, which is the second data set. And these two data sets, to really bring this together, is something that is one of the biggest challenges for many, many customers that we see, and why we have done it the way we do.
Good stuff. Eric, I want to come to you. Thoughts on definitions and what's included and what's excluded? How do you think about flat rate?
Yeah, I think it always depends on what name you're gonna give it to. Certainly, we do offer flat rate since the beginning as well. I don't know if we named or labeled it that way, but from a perspective, it's got to be predictable, right? And I think the use case matters. When you look, for example, at energy meter reading, a flat rate is a no-brainer. You have very predictable data sets coming through over a very long period of time. Regionally, also, water meters are not moving. So that's also very predictable. So from that perspective, I think a flat rate is a no-brainer. Certainly, when it comes to a global deployment, moving asset tracking around the globe, that's a little bit of a different story. Or when it comes to the automotive sector with IITC and other applications, it's a little bit different. So I think flat rate has its place. But I think there are also like security, or when we talk about other parts of pricing, when you say you have event-based pricing, for example, or you have outcome-based pricing, might sometimes be the better tool than just say straightforward, okay, I'm gonna have a flat rate pricing. But it always depends, Matt, what kind of name do you gonna give your way to market. But we are basically, from a Vodafone perspective, deployed flat rate pricing, depending on the vertical, since the very early days.
Well, I want to come back to you in a little bit on a bit more of a discussion around the verticals, and if we've got time, this idea of maybe success-based pricing, but we'll see whether we've got time for that. Sean, to jump over to you. Thoughts around that first question around definitions? How do you think about flat rate pricing?
Yeah, I think Arne and Eric have outlined it quite well. I'd say that for me, probably one of the more fun aspects of my job, and something very important that Arne touched on, is the idea that there's more in IoT than just like a data amount and a dollar amount. It's not, here's 1 megabyte, it costs $1. If that's the pitch, I think it's something, years ago, it's something antiquated, and there's no value to the customer. I think IoT has developed tremendously. So it makes sense that we're not just looking at it in such a simplistic way. When we talk about device management, edge computing, we touched on, as you said, I think Eric mentioned the event-based pricing. So having the fun, if you will, and the flexibility to build different models that suit our customers' needs is always something that, I have to be honest, I enjoy doing, and I'm happy we're able to do, because I think that it's 100%, location-based, application-based. What is best for one customer is not necessarily best for another. If I told you that I have narrowband IoT services in a specific country, well, if you don't deploy in that country, that doesn't matter much to you. So everyone's needs are different, and being able to address those needs with some sort of flexibility is absolutely the direction that we all need to be heading.
Okay, I'm going to stick with you for question number 2, which is around advantages and disadvantages of flat rate. Is it pretty straightforward? Is it about predictability for the customer? But there must be challenges as well.
Yeah, there's. I think we'll look at it from the customer side and our side. because the pros and cons might not be exactly the same. But I'll start by saying, in general, our philosophy is, the interest of our customer and of ourselves. It's almost like two lines, on an XY axis, and at a certain point they intersect. That's the sweet spot. That's what we're going for. So, an example of that could be some of the obvious benefits of flat rate is just the predictability, the simplicity. There is no doubt everyone would support that's a huge benefit. At the same time, a disadvantage may be that you're essentially, in some cases, paying for something you don't need. So that's an example where, like I mentioned before, and I'm just using the narrowband IoT as an example. It could be 2G, 3G, wherever you're located, whatever your needs are. But the cellular technology being used, the networks available to access, the geography that's included. So if I were to tell you I can get you access for a flat rate of X, and you're going to be in over 200 countries and territories around the world, that sounds great. But what if you told me that you only need access, for example, in one specific country, and I could give you that same amount of data, the same features at a fraction of the price? That's probably in your best interest. So again, what is best for one application or one customer is not necessarily the best for another. I would say that's probably the largest red flag that sticks out to me when we talk about flat rate, is just making sure that it actually suits our customers' needs. And sometimes the customer may even think it sounds good. That simplicity sounds attractive, but we want to make sure that we're walking them through what they really need versus what sounds good. And ultimately finding, like I said, that sweet spot that suits their needs and we're able to provide for them.
Okay, and internally, and in fact, we've had a question come in on this, specifically for you, Sean, and Anna. Eric applies a bit less for Vodafone, I think, because you run the network. But does flat rate pricing model take account of the fact that you rent network capacity from other operators, and does that cause some challenges internally for you? Because Sean, you talked about externally. Okay, what are the issues with how you present that as a proposition to a customer? But you've also got the internal considerations of, well, does that fit with what your costs look like? So how do you manage that? Well, maybe Anna, maybe I'll come to you first on that one, and then Sean, if you want to jump in on it.
Yeah, sure. First of all, yes. What we do with Once is, of course, we use roaming. But listen to what Eric and Sean say. They even have a bigger coverage, and everyone knows Vodafone has 195 countries coverage. So everybody in IoT relies on roaming. This is not just the fact that is applicable for MVNOs, but also for MNOs. That's fact number one. Fact number two, are we reliant on that? Yes. Which is important, which is also one of the challenges that we addressed right away while building Once. That, of course, we set up the company the way that we can really make sure that this reliability on networks is given and secured. How did we do that? We took investors aside or into the board of Once who give us the permission, basically the consent to use their networks and roaming capabilities. We started with Deutsche Telekom, extended our relationship with them over the years. So started in Europe, extended now to the US, also with the consent of T-Mobile. Now have gone into Asia, where we've done the same with SoftBank, who became an investor. So it's not the SoftBank Vision Fund only who has invested in Once, but also the operator. And again, giving us the allowance and the consent to use Asian networks at the same kind of model. And we do this and repeat this over and over again. Just to be able to offer customers, first of all, at the same logic like everybody else does it in the market, to have a reliable and, of course, a lifetime guarantee on the network that we sell.
Yeah. So very useful to have those specific partners now. And Eric, I should offer you the opportunity to talk on this because, yeah, the point that Anna makes is a good one. Vodafone has very extensive coverage, but you don't cover every country in the world, right? So the same dynamic applies to you. So what's your approach to addressing that? Because there are costs associated with connecting in every territory.
Yeah, certainly. I think, look, when we look at our own network around the globe with 27 operating companies around the globe, 450 million customers, and when you look at our main bases with Vodafone in Europe, Vodafone South Africa, Vodafone India, Vodafone Egypt, and around the globe, we have a very strong base. Certainly, when it comes to roaming, we have also a large advantage when it just comes to the sheer volume of mobility pricing outside of IoT, when it comes to running the networks in our own country, when it comes to interoperability and the standards I mentioned earlier in between the carriers around the globe. Uh, and when you look at probably at the top 5 carriers in the world, where we certainly are one of those, uh, there is a very steady base and interoperability around the globe between the carriers, which gives us a very, very strong position, not only from an operating perspective, but also an inter-exchange in between the different networks, in between technology, in between pricing, availability. So I think that here Vodafone is very specifically positioned when it comes to pricing, when it comes to roaming, and when it comes to availability. And Matt, the reason is really from my very first day at Vodafone 13 years ago. It is our ability to be the number one IoT provider and supplier, and the availability of networks. And this is today still the same.
Sean, this is a big question. What's the Telit approach to it?
The simple answer that I'll start with is it's our problem, not our customer's problem. At least that's definitely the messaging we want them to feel. So as we said, it may be a concern. It's a concern behind the scenes. As far as our customers are concerned, they're given access to an extensive network around the world, or I should say multiple networks, right? Hundreds of networks around the world, if that's what they need. And we're very fortunate to have great partners and great partnerships in place after so many years. So we've been supporting 5G for some time now, where it's available around the world. There's definitely an uptick in 5G and the demand there. Many applications that years ago wouldn't even existed now requiring that higher bandwidth video streaming type applications is very common for them. So there's a certain cost challenge that, of course, we need to manage, and we do so with our partners. But it's something that we're comfortable with, we're familiar with, and like I said, it's our problem, not theirs. We don't, everyone has struggles behind the scenes. There's no reason that we need our customers to even know about it, frankly. And what they should deal with, what they should know is what they need, and that's why we're here to take the brunt of that away and offer that simplicity where they just know this product can go to this many places on this many networks, and this is the price. It just should be that simple.
Okay, good stuff. And thank you for the question that came in from the audience member. It dovetailed very neatly in with the topic of conversation just there. Eric, I want to come back on the verticals question. And in fact, Sean, Anna, please feel free to jump in as well. Verticals that might particularly appreciate flat rate, or is it kind of across the board?
Yeah, I think I mentioned it a little bit earlier before. When you think, for example, about smart metering, very predictable. When you read your energy meter, now it's the same reading and data usage, very consistent over a very long period of time. That is an ideal use case and application for a flat rate. When it comes to basically video streaming, applications which are moving around the globe. We just touch base also a little bit on the roaming. I want to mention also here, there's certainly also some regulatory aspects around the globe which you need to be considering when you say it's truly global. I know, Arne, you use the same wording with truly global, but I always call it, there is some headache. Sean said it nicely as well, behind the scenes, which you need to work through and think through and see how you really apply this to certain market and regions. But yeah, it's certainly, Matt, use cases and application which are very predictable. There is no change in location. There is no change in data usage. Like on a smart meter, it goes around. The clock goes around in the same speed for a very long time, this is ideal. I don't want to say it would not be applicable or doable for any kind of use case, but certainly I think the dynamic, the scenarios, maybe the changes, Sean also mentioned it, necessary over the time, and what might be valid in 2023 might not be valid in 3, 4, 5 years time frame. So I think the challenges are different. But as I said, from a pure vertical and perspective, Matt, I love the very low usage, long-term applications, because that is the perfect fit for flat rates.
Yeah. So anything with hugely fluctuating potential traffic is probably not going to be a good use case. Anna, any thoughts on that? Verticals where you see particular traction for this kind of flat rate approach?
Yeah, maybe just kudos to what Eric says. I think it's true. I mean, high data use cases might be less attractive or attracted to flat rate offerings. I think I can agree to that. Whilst I would say it's hard to determine what use cases fit to a low data use case and which not. However, you could easily say that the majority of low data use cases are very much embracing the idea of a flat rate because it limits their TCO perspective and gives them clarity on what to expect on a pricing level over a lifetime. Nothing to add.
Okay. I'm going to switch tack a little bit. We talked a little bit about one of the, I guess you can call it operational challenges, which was around the fact that you've got to manage connectivity in multiple countries, typically using roaming in a lot of cases. Are there operational challenges, Anna, or is this actually relatively easy to support? Because, okay, it's based on predictable usage, it's a flat rate, and so maybe you don't need to worry so much about billing complexity. Is it easier? Is it more complex? What are some of the sort of back end issues?
Maybe that's really a very tricky question, because I think the complexity of operational challenges that we see is, of course, less on the usage, because I mean, what do we sell and what do we offer? We offer a software and a platform that is almost everywhere the same, all across the globe. It's like how you're using software. You can use it everywhere in the same way. You open Zoom, you open your webinar like we do right now. We can do it from all the places in the same way from everywhere in the world. But what is different is, of course, the regulatory frameworks. When you go into a specific market like Brazil, like Japan, we've went through this, the US, there's so many things that you need to overcome in order to really have an offering that is addressable and that overcomes the complexity for customers to simply use your service. And we have done this, and we go through this every time once we enter a new market, which we have done now for Brazil, for Japan, for the US, of course, Europe in general. But every market we do brings new complexities in terms of regulation. And the second part that we see in terms of operational challenges is, of course, the longevity itself that I think I've addressed earlier already. However, from a legal standpoint of view, customers want to have kind of assurance that this is something that you really are able to offer, which I think it is an easy one for players like Vodafone to give it to customers because they own the networks. And of course, for once, as it has its investors and trusters and fiduciaries, you could say, whom we use their networks, we can do the same. However, I mean, that's one of the challenges we see when we sell lifetime services. I mean, it's not just the flat rate that you say there is one pricing. It's really about selling services that last for longer than 5, 6, 7, in this case, 10 years.
Yeah. Eric, Sean, any further thoughts on those kind of operational challenges behind the scenes?
I mean, I agree with Arne, and I think it's not so much the operational challenges. Our GDSP Global Data Services platform is very stable and runs with over 162 million connections. But I think for me the most topic is really regulatory, what Arne mentioned, and I always call it without any sentiment. There are some headache countries there, and I can mention a couple. Arne mentioned Brazil a couple of times. I would add India, China, a very complex market, complex regulatory hurdles and problems to consider. Certainly also Turkey, very difficult to treat. It depends then on the use case. It depends on the technology offered, which you're having. Are you using then a different infrastructure? Question mark. Contractually, also a little bit challenging. So I think these are the topics, Matt. Not so much from a pure operational perspective. I think all three of our companies can handle that. But certainly the market entry and the global regulatory hurdles which are coming up is for me the main factor.
Yeah, so good. Sean, any thoughts on that? And I want to come to you on devices next as well. But any other thoughts on the sort of back office stuff or the process?
I keep the comments brief. I think a lot of good points were made. Again, with these challenges keep us on our toes. There's definitely certain locations or certain networks that are a bit more difficult, and I think we've all figured out one way or another to really make it happen. Some of the benefits and again the flexibility of having different technologies, for example, EU-ICC capabilities in certain markets, the ability to localize is huge for some customers, and that's one way that we have been able to get around some of the roaming challenges that in some cases are the issue for certain countries. There's definitely times where that's not ideal, and thankfully that's where we have the other multi-IMSI and other offerings where if EU-ICC is not what you're looking for, it doesn't fit your business model, and we can have a whole conversation just on that. But again, the ultimate benefit of knowing that there's more than one way to accomplish the goal based on what the customer's needs truly are.
Yeah, I think if you go back about 10 years, I think the attitude to regulatory compliance in every country around the world was, it'll be fine, right? And we found out that it wasn't fine, but over the course of that decade, people have found solutions, and there's still a few challenges, but kind of getting there. Right. I did promise to jump in on devices, which you described in your introductory section, Sean, as Telit's bread and butter, which of course it is. And you also said, and I noted, easy to bundle. So easy to bundle in terms of flat rate connectivity with devices. Is there anything interesting in there about lifetime value of device plus connectivity? How do you think about that?
So the short answer is yes. I mean, this is the most exciting thing for us recently. So what we've done here, and I would almost specify that the modules, I wouldn't say are our bread and butter. They were our bread and butter, because now essentially we don't look at it in a siloed way. And there was a time as Telit added new product lines that's how the company was performing. We have modules, we also have connectivity. That is not the company we are today. It's very important for us to get that messaging out there, because we see the tremendous value that it brings to our customers. For example, there's a lot of flexibility here, but the idea of something we're doing lately that's become extraordinarily popular, and I would say very exciting for the market, is the idea that you'll need an IoT module. You're going to then need your SIM card, whether it's physical or not, of one form factor or another, and ultimately your rate plan, some sort of monthly recurring charge, be it activity-based, data, SMS, whatever it is. We've put all that together and we put one price on it. So essentially our customer tells us what they need, say, this is my application. It goes to these locations. It uses this much data. I need a module certified for specific US networks, or I need a module certified for global use, whatever it may be. We work with them, understand their needs, and for a flat rate, they receive everything I just mentioned. So you pay X, that includes your module, that includes your SIM card, and that includes your monthly usage, wherever that may be. That's the additional benefit of flat rate, is that it can actually remain consistent. So not only am I telling you for 1 month that you have the advantage of bundling essentially all those components together, but you're going to pay that exact amount every month. So there's tremendous predictability. From a financial perspective, when you look at CapEx versus OpEx, again, every customer is different, what's important to them, but that additional flexibility in being able to change the commercial structure of historically how this market has been working for so many years, that I would call a game changer, absolutely.
Okay. For the last 30 seconds, I want to stick with you, Sean. We've had another question come in. I don't know whether you've got an answer to this, but I'm going to pose it anyway. We hear a lot about IoT device certification programs right now, US FCC, to cite just one example. Does this affect connectivity providers at all? Does flat rates stand out in this regard? Any thoughts on that? I don't know whether you've got an answer on it.
Yeah, I would say from our perspective, no. I mean, obviously, compliance regulation, very important to us. We have a full team that has tremendous experience in the industry, and that's all they work on globally, because every market can present its own challenges. Specifically in the US, I would say more than anything, there I would say changes in regulation, or at least what appears to maybe soon be changes in certain regulation that only work to our benefit. As a US company, we're very well positioned, especially as certain markets are being limited. It's happening already in some places, and I think we'll see it more and more, that there is a requirement, or blacklist, so to speak, in some cases, where you're not able to use modules that are from a specific country. There's a security concern that's obviously growing more and more. So for Telit, it's been a tremendous opportunity, not a challenge.
Yeah. Gentlemen, we're out of time for this portion of the session. There's been a little flurry of questions just come in at the last minute, so you should have got your questions in a little earlier. That's what I'll offer as a suggestion for next time. But just to head off one of the questions, yes, the $10, €10 pricing is well, that's the lifetime of the device. That's $10 or euros for 10 years. So not monthly pricing, to head off on the questions. But anyway, gentlemen, I should thank you for your contributions. I wish we had more time. I've still got a stack more questions we could have gone through. But at that point, it's up to me to introduce our next speaker, and that is Johan Pedersen of enlightening. Johan, I should hand the floor over to you.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Can indeed. Welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. Hi, everyone, and thank you for attending the session. Now I will talk a little bit about the antenna side of connectivity. And one of the key reasons why it makes a lot of sense to talk when you talk about flat rate connectivity. If the antenna is not correctly implemented or not optimized, you will have issues on those flat rate connectivity options later on. Typically, we work with customers before you decide on what connectivity options to go with. But actually, connectivity and the antenna goes hand in hand, because if the antenna is not working appropriately, then it will be really difficult, for example, to certify with your operator. So let me go through just a few simple slides on how we go about that at enlightening. I'm based in Barcelona, where we have our headquarters, but we operate around the world and have more than 30 million devices out there with our antennas inside. So when we talk about IoT devices and developing and deploying new IoT devices, when you start off with your new idea, you have all the options available for both connectivity, but also for all the hardware components. So that's what I'm picturing here with this graph. With the black line is like in the beginning, the number of possible design choices are infinite, basically. And then as you make choices, you limit yourself more and more. My key message here is don't wait on the antenna piece until the end, because if you do so, you'll have a very limited room to maneuver and will have a high risk of needing to redesign, spending more money than needed on the device design, not being able to certify with the operator, and such and so forth. So while the antenna is often forgotten or left until the end, we are at Ignition, and also our competitors in the space, we all would like you to start earlier with the antenna implementation and the antenna choices when making cellular IoT devices. And one company or one example where this was really clear that it was critical is this asset tracker from a company called Nestwave, developed by a company called Samea. This is a very small 3 millimeter thick parcel tracker. You can put it in envelopes, in packages of value, and you can ship them globally. This small device has multi-year battery lifetime. It has cellular, GNSS, Wi-Fi, and Bluetooth in such a small device. Obviously, that is a complex task for the antenna. And here, this is also a typical device where I would argue that the connectivity plan and the transmissions there really play a huge impact on the business case around such an IoT application. But if the antenna isn't optimized, and if an antenna isn't working properly, then this device would simply not exist. And we work together on ensuring that all those connectivity standards work seamlessly together. And one small example of things to plan for when looking at the antenna performance in your cellular connectivity is when you take your device, such as this tracker, and you put it close to other materials such as wood, concrete, metal, the human body. Everything influences the RF performance. So if you don't test and evaluate your choices early in your device design cycle, you might run into issues when you're placing your tracker close to, for example, metal, which will affect the device performance tremendously. And here on the graphs, I'm showing a few examples. The green line is the cellular signal, and the red line is the GNSS signal. And you can see the different lines. On the green side, the metal is the one that's influencing the RF performance the most. So what does this mean? This means that if this tracker device is placed too close to some material, then it won't have a connection to that cell tower closely. And you will simply lose connection. And when it comes to the flat rate connectivity topic, I don't know what is in with the small text in the agreements there, but if there is a lot of retransmissions and you don't have that sort of stable data use because of poor antenna performance, then you might run into issues. So the key thing here is to make sure the antenna is robustly implemented. And at Ignition, we are all about exactly that. And that's where I here provide you all with two key pieces of information. So on the left side, I'm highlighting our asset tracker design guide for when you are designing new IoT devices within the asset tracking space. But actually, this design guide is mainly focused around cellular connectivity. So I would say that it is a useful asset for any cellular IoT deployment. And then any IoT device design today that we work with starts doing their feasibility not in hardware, but in the digital world. We have the digital twin, or what we call an antenna intelligence cloud tool. So by scanning this QR code or simply just going into ignition.io, you can freely use our antenna intelligence cloud tool to do your feasibility of your next IoT device design. You simply put in the dimensions of the device, the wireless frequency band you want to cover, what region it is in the world, and then you will receive in a matter of few minutes a customized design with performance results. So you can actually see, well, you'll be able to do that cellular certification without building any hardware. This is a really, really powerful tool that we invite you all to use. So with that, I want to thank you for your attention. And then, Matt, I don't know if we have a couple of minutes for questions. I did figure out the new feature in macOS on the video. When you put a thumbs up, then it automatically it appears. So it seems to be a new macOS feature that is not related to the webinar platform. I don't hear you, Matt.
Is my okay?
There we go. Now I hear you.
There we go.
Yep.
All right, good. So you didn't hear my remarks about macOS. All right, well, that's fine. Couple of questions for you then. There's a lot of connectivity options that might be available. We think of all the various generations and technologies and so on. What influence might the choice of antennas have over those connectivity options, or just connectivity considerations more broadly?
Yeah, so it has a huge influence, because the connectivity option, the connectivity runs at a certain wireless frequency, and to cover that, you need an antenna. Now, whether you choose one that is in the high frequency range or in the low frequency range, it has an influence on the performance and the dimensions of your device. If we're talking about integrated antennas only, obviously, if you have an external antenna, you can put that on the roof of something, then you can do whatever with your device. But most of device makers today, they want integrated internal antennas. And for example, a very popular band for smart metering is the 450 megahertz band. Actually, we recently did a webinar with
450 megahertz again. It's not such a new band.
Again, in our world, it is definitely increased its popularity. Yeah. And there, as that is very low frequency, you need a bigger structure RF wise to have the same range or to have the same antenna performance. So whereas if you go in the US and you want to run on the cellular band 71, which is in the between 600 and 700 megahertz, also there, the low frequency requirements are harder to achieve than, for example, some of the European bands that are a little bit higher in frequency. So that means that it's easier to build a smaller device in the European region than in the US region because of the certification requirements there. So the different wireless standards and the antenna go very closely hand in hand. And then when you combine them, let's say you want to add multiple wireless, then the complexity increases. And that's why using tools like the ones I just showed with the Antenna Intelligence Cloud make this a lot easier to handle that complexity.
Yeah. You talk mostly about embedded antennas, but if I can give you a hypothetical situation, which probably comes up quite a lot, whereby a device maker kind of leaves decisions about antennas till the last minute. I would imagine you come across that kind of a scenario at the moment.
Yes.
Not having made a decision about a specific antenna yet. Recommendations on how to approach that?
Yeah, so we often see that people have already started their device design, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we need an antenna too. Yeah, let's try to fit it in."
Yep.
Which is kind of funny because you're building a wireless device. The best thing is to start with the antenna from bare PCB. However, if you have already done some designs, there's still hope. Typically, what we do is that we work with the customers on making it fit. And because of the flexibility of the virtual antenna technology, we have quite a bit of room to maneuver. However, we do see sometimes that you would need to do a respin of the PCB to get that high performance. Sometimes people just leave a UFL connector and then plug in an FPC antenna. And then in the second generation, they realize, okay, that did not work well. Let's start with the antenna.
hard lessons. Johan, excellent. Thank you very much. We're at time. It just remains me to say thank you to you. Hand back to Keith.
Thank you, Matt.
Keith, over to you.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Johan, Matt, thanks so much for your time this morning. Really appreciated it and learned a lot as usual. Please join us for all in attendance here on December 6th and 7th for our CES preview. That is the Consumer Electronics Show preview. We're going to be talking about some pretty interesting topics, AI and IoT security, IoT and disaster relief, and a new U.S. government-based certification program for IoT devices, just among some of the topics we'll be airing out on December 6th and 7th. So please join us for that. Thanks, everyone, so much for your time, and we appreciate it. From the IMC, everyone, please stay safe and well out there. Thanks so much.